Okay, good day. It is probably, for most of you, Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe even Thursday at this time. This is the second class of this semester, and it's going to be also recorded. The last class was about maintenance of employees. This class is about a little bit about maintenance, finishing maintenance, and moving into the last stage of the employment cycle, which is called termination. Termination sounds like the Terminator. The Terminator is typically, eliminating you. The Eliminator, Terminator. Actually, separation is probably a better word, but we also use termination. Okay, let me first highlight a few elements left over from last time. Last class ended, and this is review, with the idea of extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. Maintenance includes something called performance appraisals, and they're usually done yearly, and they're usually done at the end of the year. And they're based on KPIs that are set by the company or by the department in the company for employer performance. If you reach your target, there are different ways that you can be rewarded. We'll talk about that in detail when we talk about motivation. But in general, they include bonuses. A bonus is extra money, extra pay at the end of the year for your reaching a target. And the other one is possibly commissions. A commission is money paid based on the percentage of sales that you do. There's different reasons why you would choose each approach. And we'll get into that in detail later. But for the time being, I'm on page 113, and I just want to highlight and make sure that you understand the basics of extrinsic versus intrinsic rewards. Extrinsic rewards include a pay rise. Everybody expects to get some salary increases if they stay for a long time. Bonus, already said. Commission. A promotion, it's extrinsic because you have a title. You have a name, you have recognition, it's on the wall, it's on your desk, it's on your letterhead, it's in your email address. So that's actually called extrinsic. Even though you might feel good, I have a promotion, internally you get some intrinsic reward, power. But a promotion is actually extrinsic, considered extrinsic. Gifts, sometimes you get gifts at the end of the year for TAT, you get a basket of what is it called? The AFC crackers and some wine, and I don't know what else you get in the basket. Some Oreos or something. You might get an actual award where they put your name on the wall and they say this is your employee of the year or our highest sales or bestseller of the team, something like that, an award. So those are all extrinsic things. An award is something you will have printed in the company email or company newsletter or put on the wall. It's something you can see. Now, the actual award itself has a great intrinsic power of motivation. So it's not only extrinsic. Sometimes things are both extrinsic and intrinsic. Verbal praise. Verbal praise is, of course, something that someone says to you. You can touch it, you can hear it, your senses can sense it. So it has a small extrinsic value, but most of verbal praise, when people say, good job, is, that's going to be intrinsic rewards, The other kinds of intrinsic rewards have to do with your feelings and your psychology, family, about what's happening and how you did for the year. So if you are rewarded with a new challenge in a job. So you get a new project that's going to be interesting or very important for the company, a lot of responsibility. That is an intrinsic reward. Your own personal feelings about achieving a target or a goal, that is an intrinsic reward. Team success, go back to Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. Having team success and being able to share that success with your team is a definite intrinsic reward that, you know, no one knows how much and how hard everybody worked except for you and your teammates. It's an internal, intrinsic reward. Developing skills, going through training and learning how to do things and to become better at the job that you do. That's an intrinsic reward. The ability to have, like I said, responsibility, but also trust, and that follows that you have autonomous, the word it means like you have the freedom to do your job. You're given autonomy, you're given freedom to do the job. They trust you to do it. They don't have to look at you and look over your shoulder and check every day that you're doing what you're doing. They trust you. That's called autonomy. And also power, a little bit of power. Power is an intrinsic reward. And when we talk about power, it's not about power, a superhero. It's about decision-making power. So you're trusted to make decisions. You're given more authority. That's part of the trust level that the company has with you. Those are all intrinsic rewards. Page 113, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. The rewards are to motivate. Refer to when the reason for doing something is for the love of doing it or what is given in return. Reward systems must encourage. So as an employer, when you have a reward system, you want to make sure that it reinforces the things that you want it to reinforce, right? You don't want it to, if you reward people if you want people to feel motivated by keeping customers, don't give an award just for the new customers they can find. Give an award for the customers that they keep every year, right? So your goal of the company, if your goal is to get new customers, then that's the reward. If the goal is to keep old customers loyal, then that's the reward. But don't mix them up, and make sure that it goes together with the goals that the company has. Whether the rewards feels that they are valued, motivation. We're going to talk about motivation later. So that's just two, very brief definition of extrinsic and intrinsic. We will have them later in motivation theory. Separation. Separation is the last part of the employment cycle. It's on page 114. Separation is the end, right? It's the employee cycle starts with hiring and acquisition. And then we want to maintain our staff. And then, eventually, for whatever reason, these relationships come to an end. And that could be generational. Some jobs, my parents' generation, they worked for the same company for 25 years mostly. And many of them have retirement benefits that are very strong, very good benefits they got for retirement. Most people that I know in my age group, there's very few of them I know who are going to plan to do their retirement because of service to one company for a long period of time. Although it's still possible to have some pension that you get from your company. In Australia, remember superannuation, the tax that I talked about earlier? That tax is usually the pension fund for an employee. So an employee who works for several employers can continue to build money for their retirement even though they change jobs. The most common form of separation for people who work in a company for a long period of time is called retirement. Retirement in Vietnam has a specific age. If you're in the government, for example, I believe that it's 65 for men and 60 for women or something like that. It's different for women, I don't understand, don't ask me. I do think it's a bit weird. Why would you want to have a different retirement age? But that's what they have. That's voluntary, right? Mostly people retire when they're old enough to want to, some people want to work past 65, but most people, they want to retire because they worked a long time and they're tired and they want to be done with it. This is called voluntary. Voluntary means you choose. So voluntary separation includes retirement, but it also includes just leaving the company on your own, deciding that you want to leave the company and quit, basically, quit the job. So we have that category of voluntary separation. There's laws that protect workers when they leave, that they can't get, that they have to give a certain amount of time before they leave, that they have to inform their employers and they have to work out with their employers the leave that they might have to give back some of the leave that they're expecting to get. Most of the time, if you separate from a company for a while, you get all of your leave, but then they would have to calculate for what part of the year you missed. So, but voluntary separation is usually done by workers who found a new position or moving to a new country or a different area, got married, had children, some reason. Those are called voluntary. Then you have something called involuntary. Involuntary means you don't choose. It's not the employee's choice. The company is letting you go. That's a wonderful English expression. We're letting you go. But I don't want to go. Fly. We're letting you go. We open the door. We're letting you go. Fired is, get fired is a very strong word. And, we get fired, we feel it, but somebody's letting you go. You have to let you go. That's a very kind way of saying that you're fired. These jobs, so there's very strict laws. Australia has extremely strict laws about separation and this kind of involuntary dismissal. The company has to do it the right way. They have to have a lot of paperwork that justifies their decision, and the main reasons why they could decide that are for long-term performance issues and not meeting the targets for long periods of time, or perhaps they made some, heavy, major fault in the workplace, like stole money or did something that was illegal, violence towards another employee, something like that. So the two main ways that the two main reasons that a company will dismiss people is because of bad performance and breaking the rules in a very strong way. That's involuntary. Usually the employee doesn't want to leave. There's another form of involuntary separation, which is a little bit harder to understand, but it's important. It's called redundancy. Redundancy. Redundancy is when, let's say in the times of COVID right now, business is falling for a lot of companies and shops, especially in the tourist areas. I used to have 10 employees, but now I only have 50% of the customers that I had before. So I feel now that I have to cut half of my staff because I only have 50% of the customers. So did the staff underperform? No, the staff performed well. Did the staff break any rules? No, they are fine. They didn't break any rules, but I still need to let them go, or I need to separate with them because it's too much money. That's redundancy. Redundancy is when the company really doesn't have enough demand, or there's not enough customers to support the number of staff. So therefore, even though the staff is doing well, we can't afford them anymore. That's called redundancy. So I'll highlight that again. 4 different elements. Retirement is the point in time when an employee stops their full-time or part-time work. There is no longer an official retirement age in Australia. So while in Vietnam, yes. Australia, no. Resignation. This is when an employee quits the business or organization they are working for. There are a number of reasons for this, and so an exit interview is recommended. An exit interview. That is important, and I will talk about that in a minute. Retrenchment. Retrenchment is the same as what I was just saying about redundancy. Retrenchment is a synonym for redundancy. It occurs when an employee's job has become redundant, or there's not a high enough level of work in the business for their position to exist, to be viable. This can occur because of structural changes in the business, demand, or even technology. A lot of workers get replaced by robots in factories, for example. So redundancy is usually not the company's choice either. They usually don't want to do that, but they have to. Last one is dismissal. Dismissal occurs when the business needs to end an employment contract. Contracts are quite strong with an employee because of some problems with the employee's job performance. There are legal requirements for dismissal. We'll talk about them soon. Dismissal regulations vary depending on the different kind of employee. So that could be part-time or full-time. Okay, so I'm on page 114 still. And I just want to talk about the exit interview for a minute. Exit interviews are something that helps the company, right? So if someone says that they want to leave the company, you can imagine, okay, well, I wonder why. Because it's very important to maintain staff, right? I don't want high turnover, so I want to ask each employee what is making them not want to stay at my company. I need to know that, really, or else I might lose more staff. I work for one language school, I think it was called KTDC. Pretty good operation. It was okay. In this company, they had a system where the teachers would have to come in early by an hour. So if I had a class at 6 o'clock, I had to be there at 5 o'clock, unpaid. So there's already some questions about motivation and my time. A lot of schools try to take extra time from their teachers. The reason why it wasn't immediately terrible is because in that time from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, they had very, very nice classrooms with very nice multimedia and sound systems, and the view from the window was very nice, so it was actually really comfortable. So I would go there and eat my dinner and prepare my lessons and videos and maybe listen to some music or something while I got ready for my class. Okay, acceptable to a point. Okay, so later they changed the whole thing. They redesigned the school, and instead of letting the teachers go into the classroom 1 hour before, they made us come in 1 hour early, but also stay in the same room together. So it was like a staff room, very small room. And instead of being alone and relaxed, getting ready for your class, you had to sit in this small area with computers, of course, but you don't really feel comfortable eating in front of other people. So it was like even all the benefits of it. You had to wear headphones. So everything that was beneficial was actually not there anymore. Plus the manager was sitting right across the room. So they're like looking at us as we're working. So the privacy is also gone. So we felt really uncomfortable. I started to think about my job, because also I used to work 6 till 7:30 and then something like 7:45 to 9:15. And I would get home maybe 9:45, maybe. So it means that I'm not there, I'm not home from 5 p.m. till almost 10 p.m. I'm only getting paid for 3 hours of those 5 hours, and I'm not seeing my children enough. So I was like, okay, this is too much. I'm giving too much free time to this company. So I quit. I went to the exit interview, and I tried to, I was waiting to get feedback because I think that it's important. You know, sometimes you don't like the employer, but I like my staff, I like my colleagues, and I want them to have a good experience in their work. So I want to get positive feedback that can maybe support the other staff that I care about. So he asked me about this story, you know, about why I'm leaving. And I told him, I said, you know, there's too much time that I give away for free, and that I don't spend enough time with my children because I'm giving away all that time for free. So I also told him about the problem of the time for free, but also like it wasn't so bad before. If we had a system where we could be alone to get ready for, you know, so we could have that private time to get ready. And basically he said to me, yeah, but the new employees won't know what it was like in the old days. So it wasn't a great response. I said, okay, well, that's fine. But I can say that I warned him. I told him, this is why people are stressed out. It's not as good as before. And within 3 or 4 months, almost every teacher who I worked with was gone. So they had to get a whole new staff. And it's not good for a school to change teachers that much. So as a school, I think you should pay attention to the reasons why your staff leaves and try to understand them. That's what you do at an exit interview. So what do you want to know? Well, I want to know why the employee is leaving. I want to know the steps that I could have taken to keep you in this company. What could I have done to keep your employment? What is the morale? This is what I was talking about. What is the morale? What is the feeling between the rest of the workplace? What did you like about the company? And what could be improved to help employees to do their jobs? So exit interviews have a lot of benefits for the company, and very important as part of voluntary separation, right? Involuntary, not so much. Let's see, a few notes. There's a nice example about, maybe it's about redundancy on page 115. I think voluntary is pretty easy to understand. Again, retirement is when you've worked enough. Resignation or resigning or quitting, that's when either you found a new job, something better, or you have problems with the current job, which is why you care about the exit interview. So then you have the redundancy, right? You have that redundancy. Here's an example. Marquita owns a failing manufacturing business and is finding out that with declining sales, she's going to have to reduce her full-time workforce to prevent the business from going under completely. So she has gathered financial records showing the losses made over the financial period. This is part of what you need to do when you have redundancy. You need to not show every financial document, but you have to explain that the company is losing money. You have to make it clear to the staff that this is not something they really want to do. So, she gathered her financial records showing the losses that were made over the last financial period. And she calculated how much money the business will save, which is kind of silly, to share with other people, but just to say, okay, well, this is how much we have to cut the payroll by to survive. She has made the decision, so this is the first thing. So how you offer redundancy also has laws. So the first thing you should do is probably maintain the oldest members of your staff, right? You're not gonna probably, they're the ones who've been there the longest, they deserve some security. But you can ask for volunteers, right? Say, okay, we're gonna pay an extra 2 or 3 months salary to those people who volunteer to be the redundant workers. So you have a choice that you could do that. That's called voluntary redundancy. So it's not, so you get money for that, and you have security a little bit in terms of the time period to find a new job. Voluntary redundancy. So she made a decision to offer voluntary redundancy to her staff. This is because she's aware that some of her staff were already considering moving on, so this might be a good way to already let them go without disappointing your other staff and keeping morale high. Morale means the feeling of the workplace. So the other part, then after that, if you have volunteers, then you have to use involuntary redundancy. So there's some laws in Australia that, of course, protect workers. Workers are quite protected in Australia. And when a staff becomes redundant, you have to do with what Marquita did. You have to have some financial documents to show that the company's demand is down. You need to show that there's not some other jobs that the workers could do, right? Because in one part of the company, maybe they don't need them, but they could be retrained to work in another part of the company. So there's still some things you have to do and justify. You can't just say, oh, okay, well, we want to fire some workers, but we don't want to say that we're firing them. So we'll just say that we're making redundancies to get out of having to justify what you're doing when you fire the employees. You have to go and actually explain and be able to, if the judges or the courts or one of the employees challenges the company and says, wait a second, you're making a pretty good profit, this is not right. So that's what they have to be able to say, okay, here's our reason, we're losing money. So they have to consult with employees, they have to announce the problems, they have to follow the Fair Work Act, and they also have to give formal notices to employees before they're let go, and they have to give a payout of 2 or 3 months of salary besides the normal salary, besides pay for leave and all the other benefits that the employees were supposed to get. So there has to be clear reasons for that. So that's redundancy. Let's look at an Australian video.
The final stage in a discipline process may be called discharge, firing, dismissal, termination, among other terms. Regardless of the word used, termination occurs when an employee is removed from a job at an organization. Both positive and progressive approaches to discipline clearly provide employees with warnings about the seriousness of their performance problems before dismissal occurs. Termination should not take place in the heat of the moment, even in cases that involve very serious infractions, such as an employee found drinking alcohol on the job. The employee should be suspended without pay pending an investigation. The time taken to thoroughly review the situation may save the organization time and litigation costs in the end. Terminating an individual's employment is a serious matter and one that should be taken only after conferring with HR and confirming the decision is free of bias. Managers must be careful not to move forward with these terminations too hastily, and they should get assistance from individuals in security, HR, and legal counsel when handling such cases. Utilizing an employee assistance program known as an EAP professional can help diffuse a potentially violent situation. HR professionals and managers may face wrongful termination claims and lawsuits when they terminate an employee. These legal challenges can be based on federal, state, and local laws. To win wrongful termination lawsuits, employers need to follow appropriate HR processes when disciplinary procedures, as well as consistently documenting reasons for termination. One difficult phase of an employee termination is the removal of the dismissed employee and their personal possessions from organizational facilities. The standard advice from legal experts is to physically remove the employee as quickly as possible. Ex-employees are often escorted out of the building by security. Some firms allow terminated employees to return to their desks, offices, or lockers to retrieve personal items under the observation of security personnel and the department supervisor or manager. But this means the ex-employee may be seen by and talk to coworkers while upset or angry. In all cases involving employee termination, treating the employee with dignity and respect is an ethical approach and may lead to fewer lawsuits and better perceptions of the company by employees. Harsh, inhumane treatment of employees being terminated can have a chilling effect throughout an organization and serve no legitimate business purpose. In some termination situations, formal contracts may be used. One type is a separation agreement, an agreement in which a terminated employee agrees not to sue the employer in exchange for specified benefits, such as additional severance pay or other considerations. The final disciplinary phase is termination of an individual's employment, which might include a separation agreement and severance benefits.
Well, as you can hear from that very boring 3-minute video, is that there's a lot of legal stuff that needs to be dealt with. When you're letting employees go, there are, and I think we did talk about this somewhat in the EEO part of the syllabus earlier. But this is a really formal procedure that needs to go step by step. And it's similar to another question that we had to answer earlier on a quiz, but it's very important that you go and understand and are able to follow the steps. So first, we would consider a warning, right? Something happens. It's a minor incident. Major incidents need security, right? A verbal warning, but you should document it. You should put it somewhere and say, okay, there was a warning given to this employee at this time on this day. Give the employee a chance to explain. Maybe there's a reasonable situation, something happened, and the employee was out of their control. Maybe somebody's late and there's an emergency or a broken car or something. If it continues the same pattern of poor performance, then a written warning would be the next step. So, verbal warning, let the employee respond, wait for a time period, see if things are working. If it's not, the first written warning. First written warning should document, again, everything should be documented if you're an employer, because there's a lot of laws that could come back to you if you don't do it. It should document the inappropriate conduct or unsatisfactory or poor performance. When you make this written warning, you have to get it signed by both parties to make sure that it's understood. Inside the written warning, there will be some expectation of improvement, or perhaps a KPI update. Also a date of some time when the employer and employee should get back together and reconsider or reassess the situation to determine if it's improving or not, especially if it's a performance problem, not a behavior or rules problem. So we have that warning, and then if that doesn't work, there's a final warning, which basically says, well, the improvement has not really happened. This is the third and last chance that they will get to improve their performance or change their behavior. And also should be documented, also should say what's the appropriate behavior, also should have within it some update time, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month. And finally, a reassessment on the date that was the time that you were supposed to, that you put into the final warning. And then if it doesn't work out, then there's a reasonable, this is a reasonable situation for separation or letting someone go or firing them or giving them a sack. We have lots of great words for that. The sack, giving someone the sack. Look it up, it's a weird little phrase. So, in the dismissal process, now you have to consider certain elements of the relationship and how to break the relationship. Now, normally in companies that are tech companies or have a lot of intellectual property or secrets that the employee might know, they sign an agreement that they will not share any of that information with another company, or else they could be punished by the lawyers of the company. So part of the separation agreement comes from the work agreement, right? So when you made the original contract to hire the worker, it says in there the expectations upon dismissal of the worker. Security, keys, all the fringe benefits probably have to come back to the company. The company passwords have to be updated. And what this video was saying here is also that, usually the employee, when they're involuntarily dismissed, doesn't really get a lot of time. Usually they have to clear out their belongings, and they have security follow them in case that they, the company is worried that they're going to try to do some action and revenge or something like that. So it's kind of a rough situation, especially if you have a long-term employee. It's very difficult. It's very difficult, and that's I think that's fair too, because Australia really expects companies to have some respect for their workers, and I mean, you know, Australia, you know, they try really hard to have laws that are protecting people's rights, and I think they do a pretty good job in that. I don't live there, so I don't know if it always works out, but those are the different levels and different kinds of separation that can happen. Uh-oh, what's happening here? So, I think that's most everything I was hoping to discuss in this second second class, second semester. And I think that, but you need to probably do some writing on these things. We really have to get going on writing. I looked at I mean, it's okay, we're new students, but to get ready for year 12, we have to practice a lot more and write a lot more. And like I said last video, we have about 17 weeks this semester, so I'm going to be paying more attention to your homework and how much you write in your notebooks and that kind of thing, because it's the key. The key to success next year is writing this year. So to that point, on page 117, if you have your book, which you should probably have, I would like you to work on questions 11 to 15. 11 to 15. Yeah, questions 11 to 15. That would be your homework to follow up on the employment cycle. I will talk about 17 for a second because I don't think it's really in there. 17 says define 4 entitlements that employers must consider when terminating an employee's contract. So if you go back and you try to remember what is an entitlement, an entitlement was back in the times of employment, equal opportunity employment. Employee, what is it called? I'm ready. Entitlements. I just decided to do this question right now, so maybe it'll open, maybe it'll come up, maybe the internet is eaten by a shark. Somebody told me they were eaten by a shark. So most of the entitlements that would be in question number 17 are going to be about leave. Because leave, annual leave, is a right. It's by law, right? You get that no matter what. If you have a contract for 2 years and your annual leave is 5 weeks paid vacation, if you are terminated before the end of the year contract, you still get paid for that 5 weeks of annual leave. You still have that entitlement. So most of these are the leave that you have, right? The money that you would have got for public holidays, the money that you got for vacation leave. If you had some performance bonuses that you were supposed to get before, you would still be able to get those entitlements. So mostly it has to do with the pay that you should have gotten already and the things that you were supposed to benefit. And that means that you just don't lose everything that you already had earned up to that point. So that's what 17's about. 18, not particularly important. Okay, so just to wrap up today's class, there's going to be, third class this week is going to be a new topic. If you go to the syllabus, it's actually a very fun topic. It's motivation theory. Hertzberg and Maslow are part of this that you already know. But it's a really decent topic. I like it. Motivation theory has got some psychology in it. This is a topic that's meant to be for a couple of weeks. So by the end of this week, this will go on probably for 7 more classes. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks we'll finish. My dream is that we will be back in school by week 4. And that would mean that we'd be able to take a test on this material. If it doesn't happen, if we're not back by week 4, I'm going to have to move the syllabus around, and we're going to have to start working on the projects that we have, the external projects, which is the main one is the business plan, in order to have some work we can do outside of the classroom, because we won't be able to do any tests. So it'll be quite difficult for you when you come back if you just have to do like 3 or 4 tests in a row. So if we don't come back by week 4, we're going to switch to the projects, which will be the business plan. That'll take 6 weeks probably, I guess, 6, 7. And then that's 4 and 7, and then we still have 6 more weeks, and we have 3 more topics, and we'll be fine. We'll make it. We're not going to be in a hurry this semester. So have a great day, and I'll see you in lesson 3. Bye-bye.